I'm Nisha DeGaring.
And I'm Doug Jessup. Welcome to this episode of Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us who we are. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are these passed down through generations? Through words, through deeds, through stories.
When was the last time you thanked a veteran? It's time for Veteran Salute Stories. Welcome to this episode of Family Heritage Stories, where we get to preserve stories. And today, this guy has got one heck of a story, Randy Milliken. Randy, thank you for coming on today. Now, Randy, let's get real. You got the vest, you got the hat. There's obviously some kind of story behind this. And what's really cool is that people may not realize is that there's a group of you that came here today to be interviewed. And I gotta ask, the first question is, what in the world's the 159th Dust Off?
The 159th Dust Off was a unit of the U.S. Army that served in Vietnam. And our primary mission was to rescue the wounded, most often under fire. And we were unarmed, had no weapons at all. And we rescued American, Vietnamese civilians, enemy forces, Philippines, whoever called, we went to their aid.
No, wait a second. You just said something that I was not aware of. Okay, you're saying you went into a territory, okay, where there were wounded people, and
freshly wounded
people, and you were not armed?
We were not. We had personal sidearms, but we didn't have. There, if I may, there was a similar unit, and it's called Medevac, and that was a unit that was organic to an infantry division, for example, the 101st Airborne, 1st Cavalry Division. They only picked up their own people from their battles that they were involved in, but they each had 2 M60 machine guns. And we picked up, as I said earlier, not exclusively, we picked up anyone that needed to be rescued. And we figured we could get a couple, 3 more patients without having the machine guns if we had the room to put the patients. Yeah. So that was the way we approached all our missions.
Were your helicopters marked differently than any of the other helicopters that might be used in battle?
Absolutely. They were the Green Army Huey helicopters, the hot rod of our generation. But they were very cleverly marked with a white background and a red cross, which made it easy for the enemy to identify us and direct their fire toward that red cross.
Oh, so instead of having people say, "Yeah, don't do it," they actually put a target on you.
Well, and they knew we were unarmed.
Oh.
You know, an old adage of the enemy is if you wound or kill one person, you've only killed or wounded one person. But if you wound a person and somebody else comes in to rescue them, you have more opportunities and you take more people out of the battle. So they would see these big white and red crosses and they would direct their fire toward us. And we always heard that they got an extra allocation of rice if they were to shoot one of us down.
Jeez. So what year would this have been?
Well, my unit, the 159th, was in Vietnam for 7 total years. I believe, I want to say 1965 through the end of the war. Okay. And we never had more than maybe mechanics and all included, we never had more than maybe 50 people at any given time, so over that period of time. So it was a rather small, select, elite group.
Now, obviously the Vietnam War had some interesting political issues and stigmas and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is that you guys were there. It doesn't really matter how you got there, but it's like, okay, there's something that happens when you are there together. You said it's an elite group. Is this one of those where, how did you get into the group, I guess is the question.
Everyone in the unit was a volunteer.
Really?
Everyone in the unit was a volunteer for the unit. And some of them were draftees, but they chose to do that mission. And if I can say this, there's a lot of Vietnam veterans have a great deal of discomfort when they think back of some of the things they were forced to do to defend themselves, their brothers, their buddies, to defend their lives, to take lives. Our mission was simple. We were unarmed. We came there to save lives. So we I think in our later years are a little more comfortable with our service because we had a mission to bring people home alive that wouldn't have made it otherwise.
You've got a patch right here. What's that patch represent?
That is a combat medic badge for a medical specialist.
So for those people out here that might not know, what is a combat medic?
It's an EMT, and actually it is it is the root of all modern day civilian medical evacuation helicopters and services. It's where the EMTs and the paramedics came from. It's where the, whatever you call it in this area, life flight, the emergency helicopter that comes in and picks up critical people and moves them to hospitals. That's where it really all began.
So Randy, tell me, let's go back a lit'll bit. So where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Texas in a very small community called Throckmorton, which is up on the Texas-Oklahoma border. Little town of, my graduating class had 19 in it, so it's a pretty small place.
Mm-hmm. So how did you end up getting into this unit and into the war itself?
Well, I wish I could show you. There's a famous Life magazine photograph that made the cover, and it's a bunch of, I believe it's Marines, being evacuated atop of armored personnel carrier, and they're all wounded, and there's one guy there holding this bottle of IV fluid for a guy that's covered in bandages. And I'm just out of high school, and for some reason that photograph really spoke to me down deep. So I joined the Army and told them the only way I would want to be in the Army is if I could be a medic, if I could be that guy. And luckily I had the aptitude for it and took the training, became a medic.
If I were to ask you and then ask all the rest of the guys, is there a common, I don't know if experience is the right word, but a common thing that you always kind of say, okay, this is what I brought back. This is what shaped me and kind of went through my life, be it good or bad?
Without a doubt. My upbringing, my mother and father, just plain salt of the earth folks. And my dad, and I had a dad that was one of those characters that you, every day in my life now, I talk about my dad to somebody about something that my dad did, said, but my dad always taught me, he says, son, whatever you do in life, always put back more than you take out.
Wise man.
And I can tell you that every one of these guys would feel the same way, and they're still doing it to this day. We've got doctors, we've got career military people, you know, they've given back their entire lives. And life's been good to them, and that, I think that's like you owe it, like my dad would say, just put back more than you take. That's your moniker as well. Mm-hmm. Take what you want, but put more back and leave some for the next guy. Make it better.
Veteran Salute Stories is made possible by a generous grant from the Fedora Foundation and viewers like you.
You're watching Family Heritage Stories. We'll be right back.
What you're about to see is the world's most revolutionary telephone switching invention. We call it Super Switcher. It has almost no moving parts, yet handles 4 times more calls than its predecessor. It required an investment of $400 million, but should ultimately save $1 billion a year. And soon, every major American area will have one. Looks dull, eh?
Well, imagine that each of these cars is a long-distance call. This new invention can handle over 500,000 an hour. That's 5 days' traffic on a busy Los Angeles freeway. Super Switcher. It should go a long distance to prevent traffic jams on your long-distance calls.
The Bell System, people using technology to help keep down costs and improve service, keeping your phone system the best in the world.
What do you call a kid who can die like that? You call that kid They call you Cracker Jack.
What is one of your favorite memories about Grandma or Grandpa?
Namely, who I'm from and where my roots are from. It's our ancestry. It's our family story. We came out of the grassroots of Poland. You wouldn't even want to live there. Rural farmers, and my grandma immigrated at the age of 13 to the United States by herself with some other people who we don't know, because there was no future for a young girl who was the oldest one in the family, because the boys get the estate. So she came to the United States by herself, and then she married my grandfather in a couple of years later and lived in a boarding house.
Where did she move from Poland? Where did she move?
Passaic, New Jersey, or if you want me to say New Jersey. That's the only grandmother I met.
Tell me about it.
She was short, and my father called her, nicknamed Rocky. And she was a hard-line, strict Catholic and a good woman. And my grandfather, he had one eye like me.
That you did know.
He was a neat person. He was an athlete. He ran away from home when the house burned down in 1902. He was, 1899. He was 14 years old. And his stepsister said, we're going to leave tomorrow for Ambridge, Pennsylvania. And you don't want to go with us because Pa is going to want all your money that you're going to earn. So he didn't show up. And he became an orphan by design. He changed his name from Turk to Kovac, Kovac.
And now, Dad Jokes with Mike Agrilius.
Can a kangaroo jump higher than buildings this tall? Yes, you know it's true. Buildings can't really jump at all. Did you hear about the circus fire? It was intense. The clowns were in dire need of common sense. All from the book, Whatever Floats Your Goat, the granddaddy of dad jokes for kids and old goats.
The last words that my grandfather said were, "Please remember me." This is Doug Jessup. It would be my honor to help you share your story with a private in-studio interview with a video for you to keep. Go to FamilyHeritageStories.com for pricing and to schedule your interview.
I'm Doug Jessup.
And I'm Katie Higley.
You're watching Family Heritage Stories.
And we'll be right back.
I have a pretty cool family. Some family I haven't even met, but they are amazing too. How do I know? Your history is everywhere, if you know where to look. But searching through all this? Are you kidding me? Actually, Kindex makes it easy to gather records and add them to your online archive. So everyone can jump in and index their records, making every word searchable.
As I sit here all alone, I wonder what you are doing now, period.
So I look on that.
There are lots of ways to transcribe and tag records. With Kindex, I know them anyway.
One of my favorite inspirational quotes is from Audrey Hepburn. She said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." The name of the show is Family Heritage Stories. What does heritage mean to you?
So 6 years ago, up until 6 years ago, I had no real wanting to know who my parents or who my real parents were, because I had some great parents that brought me up and everything. But my daughter got all of the siblings to want to know more about, of course, the heritage, but also about the medical records. So they gave me an ancestry kit for Father's Day. And so okay, I'll do it. And I'm starting to get excited about it. I did the ancestry kit, send it off. Middle of July, I get this email. It says, here's people you are related to. We have over 1,000 people that are up to first cousins. And I'm going, first cousins? Oh my gosh. And I'm going, that's a lot. But then it says, these 3 are very close relatives. One of them is R.O. He's either your father or your son, but he's 84. That's my father, okay? And here's who manages his account, which is probably your sister. So now R.O. had no information, but Lisa did. So I emailed Lisa and I said, hey, I just found you on Ancestry. I don't know anything about who this is, you know, and who R.O. is. I'd like to know more. Now, I was a little leery of people thinking, what is it you're trying to get out of this? And I had that experience with my mom's side, but my dad's side, oh, we are so excited to finally find you. My dad knew that you existed. He was over in Germany when you were born. After the war, he was helping to rebuild Germany. And he only heard through the grapevine that a girlfriend he had here had me. But she put me up for adoption, and he had no way of finding out 2 years later when he came back.
Finding your birth father?
There's some interesting things we found, yes. So my when I was born, my mother put on some information about me, and she says I'm Irish, English, Welsh, and a little bit Scandinavian. Well, when I finally got the DNA back, I'm very strongly from Denmark. Like 51% was Denmark, okay? And other little areas around there. But then it said I only have 7% Irish, 6% English, and very heavy on Europe, very Western Europe. Turns out that my mom was, her grandparents were from France. And so, but my grandfather was from, of course, Denmark. So it was cool to find that out. And one of the things was, my last name is Peterson. As we started doing some genealogy, we found out that my dad and my birth father were relatives. 5th great grandfather is the same person. It's just that my heritage came through a daughter and my dad's came through a son.
Mind blown.
So I was born into the same family I was adopted by.
What was the first car you drove?
First time I drove a car, I was about 11 years old. I took it to go change water sprinklers, and it was my dad's. He'd just finished restoring it. It was a 69 El Camino, beautiful metallic blue, and I misjudged the fence post and wiped out the entire right side of it. Yeah.
Dare I ask what your dad's reaction was?
He was like, well, you're gonna have to fix it. And so he made me sand it down and help do the body work on it. And so it was,
you got to do the body work?
Well, I helped with it. He did most of it, but yeah. It could have been a lot worse. If it was my sister, because she was a lead foot and all over the place, it would have been worse, but I was the favorite. We all know I was the favorite.
What are your family stories? I'm Nisha DeGaring.
I'm Doug Jessup. It would be our honor to help you share your stories with an in-studio interview.
We take out the bloopers, add in your pictures, and give you a digital video to keep.
To schedule your interview, go to familyheritagestories.com.
Objects with stories. Our treasures remembered.
With me today, Micah Christensen with Anthony's Fine Art.
This is what we would call a grand orchestral cylinder music box made in Switzerland in the 1880s. This is the most spectacular music box you will ever see. A 10-cylinder music box with case. And if you looked on the outside, you wouldn't really know what you were approaching. This is mahogany with brass lining. And then it has this beautiful Louis XV style cabriole legs. And each one of these drawers opens up to reveal musical cylinders that can be changed for the purposes of playing additional songs. Each cylinder has 8 songs on it. Here we have 9 of them, and the 10th is in the interior. These numbers, Roman numerals 1 through 8, show the different songs that you can choose on each cylinder. Each cylinder has 8 different songs. So on this cylinder, we will play song number 1. This has all of the moving parts and the delicacy of a Swiss watch. On this side, we have the winder, which is what gives it the energy and gets the springs prepared. And then these mechanisms move the cylinder, which is here in the middle, and the cylinder has tiny little tines on them. Tines are raised parts of the surface that as the cylinder moves, it strikes the cone. And that's like hitting the keys on a piano. And there are also 9 bells, which is one of the things that makes this extraordinary. If you want to go ahead and press play.
From old paintings to new videos on your kids' devices, we're all trying to do one thing. We're trying to make a connection. It's the power of stories. How powerful are stories? We asked Maura.
It's priceless. It's priceless to me because when I was first sitting with the guys listening to their stories, it's something you just can't get back. And there's a lot of stories I wish I would have had recorded from my dad, my mom, my grandparents. So at least we were able to get these stories recorded. And to have them videoed and digitized is key, because the younger generation, you know, sitting with my nephews, doing homework with them over COVID, they weren't looking at books, they were looking at screens, and they can look at this on a screen.
Everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories are told through music.
What makes you smile? Spry Natural Xylitol Gum makes me smile. I think it might help you too.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories are not passed down from generation to generation, they become lost. And it's as if these people never lived.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Doug Jessup.
And I'm Nisha DeGaring.